So people have wondered, how do you stay organized as a dungeon master or even as a player? They struggle with keeping everything, sort of together and referring to NPCs and more. So I'm going to be revealing or popping the hood to show you exactly what my DMing notes kind of look like and how I organize everything through the likes of OneNote. OneNote is a completely free software. It's done by Microsoft and all that stuff, and it is a very, very essential to being able to just keep your stuff organized. Highly, highly recommend it, and we're gonna go through how exactly I utilize it pretty much for my daily D&D sessions that I have to run. So I'm gonna share my live scene, and we're gonna go into this. So I made a test notebook for the likes of the DM. And we're gonna go through each of these sections and what they mean. So as you can see, OneNote, the way it basically works is you have differing notebooks for whichever you want. And typically the way I have it is I'll have a notebook for each campaign. So I'll have one for Soulbound, I have one for Rime of the Frostmaiden, Sands of Sin, and more. We're using this little test DM notebook for right now though. And in the notebook, you'll have different sections and different categories and stuff, right? So these different categories can also go further into different pages. So as you guys can see, the way OneNote works is kind of like a pyramid sort of system where you have pages that lead into sections that lead into notebooks and more. So the way I have my things is I will separate them all with these sort of category breakers. So I'll add a section, I'll add like 3 little lines, and I'll put like sessions, and then I'll put out of character info, and then I'll put lore and major NPCs. Basically everything I can to sort of separate everything and keep it all nice and neat. Afterwards, let's look into the session tab. So how does SenseiSuplex kind of prepare for his sessions? This is the big one. So one thing to note before we go into this is I keep track of every single session. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, all of them. I do not get rid of the notes even after I'm done with them, because you never know when you'll need to reference something that happened weeks and weeks ago or at the beginning of the campaign. And if you have it deleted, you obviously don't know where to look. But if you have it still there and you remember which session it was, then you can easily refer to all your notes and be able to recall it just like that. So that being said, wait, is OneNote free? I thought it was a part of Microsoft Suite. No, it's free. You can just download OneNote. No, that's what I did. Unless I'm completely crazy, but I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure it's free. But yeah. Hard to follow says, all right, I got a question. How can I as a DM incentivize attendance? It was like every week one person always bails with some excuse. Well, that's just life. That's just life. D&D, so, here's what I actually have. So I actually made a video, hard to follow, on the YouTube channel that literally explained or helped out how to conquer the #1 killer to D&D, and that killer was, well, scheduling, as you could probably imagine. And let me see if I can go find it for you. Copy link. So it gave out a couple of tips on how to deal with it, but go check out that video, go leave a like. You can watch it after the stream, or you can just go tune into to that video real quick and go comment on that and like for the algorithm. But it basically goes into depth and detail of how what tactics I use to sort of help with it. There's not much you can really do because you're trying to sort of rely on an external factor for success, which is basically other players attending, So one things that you can also do that I don't go over in that video is you can have standby players. So have a pool of players that want to play D&D with you, and when one of the players can't make it, you pull in a standby player or a person who's not a part of the main cast that just plays D&D as a guest star for that session, and they keep playing until eventually you guys have the main cast all there. You know what I mean? They just take the person who's missing spot for them. But hopefully that helps you out. But anyways, back to this sort of OneNote thing. So so let's go over to the session. So each session is comprised of these sort of categories. I'll have all of these sort of pages that I can refer to. I'll have an announcements page. So you may have announcements for your game, depending on what you do, where it could be like saying, hey, no session next week, we have Halloween or whatever. Or hey, we're gonna go over to the new homebrew system using intuition checks or whatever. You can write all these things down, or announcements that you can remember to go over before the game starts. So having this at the top of the page is pretty essential. afterwards, let's go into more of the DMing notes. Now, granted, OneNote is, a lot of this is going to be subjective, as these are just what I use for my games and how I DM. So you're probably going to use something completely different, but I will still at least pop the hood to show you guys how I do things. To come up with an outline. So the way I work it is, I know that I run my games for 3 hours roughly. 3 hours with some change. So, but I plan for the sessions all to be 3 hours at the minimum, because I know shenanigans are going to happen. I know my players are going to get or RP for a while. So my games are going to end up running to about 3 hours and 30 minutes or 4 hours. And I break each hour into, well, sections that I need to prepare for. So for me, I have an intro to the session, which I'll go into more, which basically is like the recap of the session of going over what happened previously. I have a where we left off, which is like me going from the intro recap to what's happening right now, right this second. And then I'll break everything down into scenes, you know, things that I know that are going to happen. For example, if you're playing a module, you can know to prepare for different sort of scenes or different adventure scenarios ahead of time. If you're playing in a more of a homebrew campaign, you still have most of the time, you still have a general idea of potential scenes or potential places the players can go to, right? And I'll prepare for these things. I'll have also things like mansion exploration. So let's say for this little thing, it says entering the manor scene 1. This will be like, oh, they enter, these are the things that I'm going to say, like the read aloud text, or these are the things that they can possibly find when they enter the manor. And then the mansion exploration would be maybe like a entire sort of, I don't know, battle map of the mansion for them to explore. Like if they go to the fourth door on the right, blah, 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 this is what they find. If they go to the kitchen, this is what they find, blah, 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 all that stuff. And as I have this, as I complete everything, I'll mark it down with done. I'll mark it down with done. Mark it down with done, because I'm a very goal-oriented person. When I see that I'm getting stuff done, it feels as if I'm not just wasting my time focusing on things that don't matter, such as, you know, random hair salon shops for world building in a city that doesn't even exist yet, or the players haven't even heard about. I'm not focusing on world building and all of this. I'm focusing on planning my D&D game, because that is what the players are going to play, right? Right. This is, again, this is all subjective. This is all what I do and how I run my sessions. So hopefully you guys can get a little bit of, you know, value out of this. The next thing that I do is I will go into the second hour, which is saying, okay, it's going to be a combat encounter with ghosts, all that stuff. I also need to prepare the fight loot and what happens in the aftermath and more. Then in the third hour, it will be like, okay, we're going to talk, maybe after they get into this fight, they can talk to the leader of the manor, or maybe an option could be, oh, instead of talking to the leader, they died to the ghost or whatever, and maybe skeletons came in and they captured them or something, I don't know. Or maybe they just straight up all died and they TPK'd and they wake up in the underworld. So I'll have like these 3 different scenes that I can pull upon just in case, you know? All that stuff. And that's basically the outline. So once we have the outline of the session of kind of what it's going to look like, then we're going to go into the to-do list, which is, again, pretty similar to the outline. But again, it's just once I finish one thing, I'll just go into, I'll mark it done, and then from there, then and there. And this can go into things of like setting up the battle maps, picking which monsters to fight, or picking out the music that I want to use for the session, right? How do you format your DM notes, such as NPCs, environments, etc.? Well, that's going to be completely different from you to me, because I format my things where I have it as read aloud text, because I'm very terrible at explaining stuff. So I will have it where, you know, I'll be like, okay, I will read this text out, or I'll have bullet points to help me and assist me. So it'll look a little bit like, and that's not what a lot of DMs do. They'll just sort of, some DMs will just have a picture in front and they will just refer to that picture to describe the environment. Everybody's going to be completely different. So what I do may not work for you, but just to get a general example, it'll kind of look like this, like in sort of read aloud text, right? It'll kind of look like this. But yeah. Phoenix V says, what do you do when there is a derail or positive derail? I mean, like roleplay exploration, maybe something that makes you go, well, damn, didn't expect them to do that. Now what? So it comes with that comes with experience, because that is what is known as improv. Being able to improv ways and scenarios of what happens next. It's just the role of the dungeon master, which you just kind of got to do. Now, one thing that I say, I actually made a whole video of how you can improv better, also on the YouTube channel, go check it out. Which basically or my way of getting around improving so much is I just prepare more. The more, and the idea of preparing, let's go into a little bit of philosophy, chat. Let's go into a little philosophy. Why do we prepare? we prepare, or most of the time, or at least this is how I do it. I'd assume everybody else does it this way, but I prepare my D&D games and write things down because I know that I won't be able to remember it later in the middle of the game. I write these things down so I have something that I can reference. Now, granted, everything that I prepare, it won't be utilized in the game. It probably won't. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if 50 to 70, maybe even 90% of the stuff that I prepare for isn't utilized. That's just normal. That's just welcome to D&D as a dungeon master. Hi. But, you know, like, having those little ideas of being able to write stuff down and being able to know what could happen if the players do this and this and this, that gives or makes you a little bit more confident. That makes you a little bit more prepared and ready for when chaos inevitably ensues. So whenever you have these sort of things and scenarios, maybe it doesn't happen in this session, but maybe you had a specific a thread that you can, or that you wrote a long while ago, like 7 sessions ago, that, hey, this is the perfect time to sort of weave and connect that thread to here, you know, that sort of stuff. It all comes with experience and just being able to know when to sort of weave and connect certain plot threads and other things to get pretty much everybody back on track. But also, one thing that I should mention as well is don't be afraid to just call the session where it is. Don't be afraid to also go to break. What I mean by that is going to break could be like, hey guys, as we pick up, or as you guys go into this room, we're gonna take a quick little 15-minute break, and during that 15-minute break, all the players can just go talk amongst themselves, go get some food, whatever, and come back in a minute. But what you're doing is you're freaking getting your butt back in gear and getting or preparing and planning all the stuff that makes sense and connecting and weaving all of these sort of things haphazardly in those 15 to 30 minutes of, you know, that break. You could also, if you realize that something is going to take a lot more time than you anticipated, where you can't even just go to a break, then simply don't be afraid to call the session there. Don't be afraid to call the session there, because you could, I mean, depending on, it depends on the type of person you are, but sometimes certain scenarios would be to, or some scenarios are best off where you present them the best or in the best light compared to presenting them now and getting them over with and done right now. You know what I mean? So it's just really just judging the situation. And a lot of this stuff is going to come down to experience, and the only way to get experience is by DMing. So hey, if you haven't started DMing now, or if you haven't ever filled your shoe or taken the shoes of the dungeon master, I advise you to at least just try it out once. Okay, so afterwards, I will have an intro for these sessions and stuff like that. Now, intros can vary. It's completely optional. You might not actually have or recap your sessions, but I highly recommend that you recap your sessions to get everybody back in the mood of D&D, but also to figure out where you guys left off, you know, to remind players. I sometimes can write out things of the nature of, you know, kind of reading or read aloud text or as a story, or I might end up doing a bullet point version where it'll just show this, where it recaps kind of in bullet points what the players did last session. And I'll vary session to session. It just depends on what mood I am in that day or how much time I have to prepare for, you know. Afterwards, I'll have my scene outline, and I will using OneNote, I will make it into a subpage. To make anything into a subpage, all you got to do is you just right click on the page itself, and then you just hit make subpage and all that. So I will have each scene where I'll write out all my notes. This one will just be entering the manor, talking to the chief or the leader. Then I'll have night watches and stuff like that. And scene 3, we can, again, this isn't connected to the previous things, but you get the idea. Scene 3 could be, oh, for night watches, we'll have like, oh, the beginning watch, and it'll have a little bit of this stuff that we encounter here where, oh, it's a social encounter with a shooting star flying across the sky. Or, oh, it's a combat encounter against skeletons. Or end watch, oh, it's an exploration encounter of hearing noise in the distance. You know, this is a very, very bare bones and outline sort of thing. All your DM notes will be a little bit different from me, but this is just how I organize them, right? This is the main takeaway. Afterwards, after we get into the sessions, we go to the out of character info where we'll have the social contract info. This could be where you place all your session 0 stuff of things that you are or that the players are okay with you running, things that you're not okay with running, and being able to refer to here, so you don't have to guess like, oh man, do my players have an arachnophobia? Oh well, I don't know. Well, I guess I'll just try it anyways and figure it out in the game. You can just refer to it here in the social contract and then go from there. You know, just go from there. Also, I have like the likes of homebrew mechanics, where any things that I'm using homebrew wise, I can add it here and then write it down. For example, I have my little medicine and poison crafting. Here is a little brief example. I have base building for the soulbound games as a brief example. You may have like a homebrew subclass or something, so you can write it down here to be able to reference it just in case you want to know and understand how an ability works. Player character info, this is a big one, very, very big one. So this is what I use for every single one of my characters, even when I'm a player. I'll have this little document. Now, granted, you may be wondering, okay, Sensei, how the heck do you even do this? Well, to be fair, all this is just a random image that I just got online of like a paper notebook. I have the player icon right here, and then I just have a bunch of text that I've just sort of formatted. That's pretty much it. That's literally it. And you can do this just as well. So I'm trying to click on it, but OneNote's trying to die on me, but it's fine. But pretty much, I have things such as like the stats of the player characters, if you really want to get into this sort of route, which is as simple as just sort of typing stat bonuses, skills, and then just hitting the tab button to make a table and more, and going from there. But it will also have the things of like their class, their race, their alignment, their background, and even the likes of their backstory and more, right? All the other stuff, but even having a little bit of a TLDR if you need to quickly reference things. I have things such as the character personality with a couple of things, maybe in a bullet point sort of format, or even just a sort of paragraph format. Character flaw, I have the character short-term goals and the long-term goals and more. So all that stuff. And I would do this for every single character. Hold on, we're gonna close out of OneNote because it's trying to like die on me for a second. So I have this for every single character and more, pretty much that way. I'll even have player character secrets as well, where I'll have like oculi secrets. This is just a little bit of a test example where, oh, maybe, and you're gonna have this for every single character. I'll have it where, oh, for Rashid will figure out that he is possessed by the world serpent, and upon sleeping 5 times in the campaign, this will be revealed, or something like that. Or another thing, this isn't real, by the way, guys, but it could be, oh, the oculi's eyes will explode if their curse is not lifted, and all this stuff, and they will all figure that out within a certain amount of time or whatever. Or this is a thread that I can pull for later, or I don't know. Maybe it could be specifically Amakos will learn the true nature of the pact he made with the devil, that donuts will be sent to him every blood moon as an ill omen for the sign, or to signify the death of donuts, whatever it may be. The point is having a little bit of a secrets tab for things that your characters can kind of eventually figure out eventually in the campaign or the adventure is really, really helpful, because it'll again leave you or give you another thread that you can pull upon for later, just in case anything happens and you think it's the appropriate time to pull upon that thread, you know. Other than that, I'll have the lore down below here, and I came up with I have like a little bit of basic lore for Arksfield, this being the city I ran for campaign 1. Yours is going to look completely different than mine, I promise you, but I'll have like the city map, I'll have a couple of buildings and all that stuff. But yeah, all of those greatness. Major NPCs that I may need to sort of pull upon. This isn't really an NPC, this is a faction more so, but I'll have the faction, like the name, the leadership, the description, what they want, headquarters, their motto, and more. And that's basically what I do or that's basically kind of how I function as a dungeon master, having these sort of things. And whenever I get done with a session, I'll add a new section. I'll label it as session 4. I'll move it over here, and I'm just gonna copy and paste everything that I worked on last thing. I'll copy it, I'll paste it, I'll delete this page, and then I'll just rechange it to the next session or whatever I need it to be. I'll change the scenes obviously and go from there. But yeah, that's basically how I do run things as a DM, or using the likes of OneNote. So hopefully that helps you out. But we can also go a little bit further there, and we can talk to you guys of how you do it from a player's perspective. So for a player's perspective, you can have a lot of these similar things, but it's not going to be as much. I'll have like sessions and stuff like this here. I'll have like session 1 where I'll probably have a to-do list, for example, where for Rashid will be like, oh, scam Winveer, or ask Array about the deity, or not die. So you ever have those things as a player where you forget to do something, you're like, damn, after the session's ended, you're like, damn, I really wish I would have remembered to do XYZ, right? Having this little to-do list and referring to it at the beginning of the session, the middle of the session, at the end, will be able to show like, okay, what you got done as a character, you know? What you got done. You can also go into things like their general notes, taking things. I'm not going to tell you how to take notes as a player because I barely am good at taking notes, but here's how I kind of do it. I'll also have player character info. So I'll have the same thing for Rashid, which is my player character and all that stuff. But I'll also have a bit of voice lines as well. For things that I may say in character. Now, this isn't Rashid's voice lines. These are actually voice lines from my character, Jen. So, you know how if you ever use voices and you struggle with getting into character, I can refer to a couple of these little voice lines and be like, oh, I know exactly how to get into this. So, for example, I will say, this is for Jen, this isn't Rashid, but whenever he's casting Mage Hand, we'll be like, hey Flump, can you give me a hand? And he'll summon Mage Hand. Or Dancing Lights will be like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm kind of scared of the dark. Hey, I wish I could see like you guys and see all the colors. And then 4 globules of light immediately appear floating around Jen's head. You know, like I'll come up with little voice lines or maybe descriptions to get into character that maybe I'll utilize in game or maybe I don't. I'll have a section for also for other PCs and go into little things like this for like King, for example, played by Gabe Grimar. I'll have the player name, the character name, the race, the class, major appearance features, and then maybe backstory stuff that I can just refer to and add on over the course of the campaign, you know? And yeah, that's basically what I do. That is basically how I function as a dungeon master. This is my livelihood. I do this for a living. All right, let's read. So hopefully that helped you guys out at all in chat. Let's take a couple of questions and then we're gonna go into the Aurora Skip Fit challenge.